All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the mesmerizing but, let's be real, incredibly demanding world of keeping tangs and surgeonfish. Look, if you've ever stared at a beautifully maintained reef tank, chances are your eyes went straight to one of these vibrant, hyperactive swimmers just cruising the rockwork. But, as we'll see from our source material today, keeping these magnificent fish actually thriving, it requires some strictly dialed-in husbandry. This is definitely not a beginner's game.
Let's start with a reality check straight from our sources. This really frames everything we're about to get into. Successful tank keeping is honestly way less about just remembering to feed them once a day and much more about long-term tank space, perfectly stable water, and aggressively managing, well, aggression. It's not just tossing in some flakes as you run out the door for work. It's a massive long-term commitment. You are literally committing to managing their physical space, mastering your water quality, and honestly, playing referee.
To get you set up for success, we're going to breeze through 5 foundational pillars today. We'll start with a quick reality check on the fish themselves, then hit essential space and setup, talk about mastering water quality, jump into proper diet and grazing, and finally wrap up with health and tankmate compatibility.
So let's jump right into pillar number 1, understanding the actual species you might be dreaming about adding to your reef.
Right off the bat, there's a huge divide in this family. You've got your common, popular species. Think bristletooths, the iconic yellow tang, sailfins. These are fantastic starting points for dedicated reefers. But hey, make no mistake, they still need really strict setups. Then you look at the challenging Acanthura species, like that absolutely stunning powder blue tang. That completely ramps up the difficulty level. Our sources are super clear here. These specific fish are unbelievably sensitive to stress. They demand a nearly flawless environment just to survive, let alone thrive.
Knowing the fish is just half the battle, right? That brings us to our second pillar, planning for adulthood. This is where so many people stumble.
We've all been there. You walk into the local fish store, you see this tiny, gorgeous juvenile tang, and you think, oh, that fits perfectly in my smaller tank today. But here's the harsh reality. Small tanks fail these fish over months, not days. As they mature, their oxygen demand absolutely skyrockets. Their waste load gets massive, and the territorial pressure, it becomes severe. So a tank that fits your tank today is going to outgrow it in a blink, turning what was a cute impulse buy into a highly stressed, super aggressive adult.
So, what does a proper long-term setup actually look like? Well, there are a few non-negotiables. First, they need strong swimming room with wide-open cruising lanes. Tangs are athletes, you know? They aren't just going to hover in a corner. They also need extensive grazing surfaces, and this is crucial. That means established, mature rockwork. You have to design an aquascape where they can naturally graze on algae and biofilms all day. Dropping them into a brand new tank with freshly cycled barren rocks just won't cut it. They need a living ecosystem, not a glass box.
Okay, moving on to our third pillar. Let's talk about the actual chemistry of their home. When it comes to tangs, mastering water quality stability is absolutely everything.
Think of your water quality literally as your tang's immune system. Fluctuating parameters directly trigger stress, appetite loss, and a massive spike in susceptibility to parasitic diseases. If you take away just one single thing about water chemistry from this entire explainer, let it be this: consistency beats constant tinkering, hands down. Unstable water, even if you're constantly chasing numbers trying to fix it, just stresses the fish out and rolls out the red carpet for a major disease outbreak.
To hit that elusive stability, our source material leans heavily on powerful gear and solid filtration. You need totally reliable salinity and temperature without those big daily swings. You need robust mechanical and biological filtration. And a highly efficient protein skimmer? Absolutely mandatory. You have to pull out their massive waste load before it breaks down. Finally, high water flow. Like we talked about, these active swimmers chew through oxygen. You really need that water surface churning to keep the tank fully oxygenated.
All right, pillar number 4, proper diet and grazing. Because with tangs, feeding is so much more than just a quick meal. Let's look at how they actually eat on a natural reef. Out in the wild, tangs spend massive chunks of their day just continuously grazing on algae. To replicate that, you have to provide a high-quality mix of those exact dietary staples. We are talking nori sheets, dried seaweed blends, herbivore-focused pellets, and occasionally spirulina-based enrichments. You absolutely cannot just toss in some standard meaty marine foods and expect them to be okay. Their complex digestive systems literally demand a specialized, heavily algae-forward diet.
But you know, how you feed them is just as critical as what you feed them. It really boils down to grazing versus snatching. Grazing is the goal. It's that natural behavior where they just kind of lazily pick at the rockwork all day long. Snatching, on the other hand, is when they frantically gulp down huge, infrequent meals. You want to offer small, consistent portions to encourage that peaceful grazing. If they're aggressively snatching food, it usually means they're hungry, stressed, and competing way too hard. Plus, dumping huge amounts of food in at once is just going to nuke your water quality. Keep their stress low by mimicking nature's slow, constant buffet.
Now, it's pretty wild how much dietary needs can vary even within the tang family. Take bristletooth tangs, the Kenechectus species. Our source points out they forage completely differently than those big sheet grazers. Actually, scratch that. They don't even really want a big piece of nori on a plastic clip. They specifically need fine-grained grazing options and biofilm-rich rock. They literally have specialized comb-like teeth evolved just to scrape detritus and film off mature rocks. It's fascinating, but it means your tank has to be fully seasoned to support them.
Finally, we arrive at Pillar 5, Health and Tankmate Compatibility. This is all about managing territory, and honestly, it's usually the most dramatic and volatile part of keeping tangs.
Tanks notoriously arrive from shipping incredibly stressed out, making careful introductions a must. First step, strictly quarantine them. Do not skip this or you risk bringing a devastating parasitic ick outbreak right into your main display. Next, you have to plan your additions carefully around the territories that are already established in the tank. And when you do add them, watch their feeding responses like a hawk. If the other fish are bullying the new tang away from the food, its stress will spike instantly. Never, ever rush an introduction if the existing fish have their territories firmly locked down.
Picking tank mates is a super delicate balancing act. Generally, peaceful midwater swimmers and robust, non-nippy reef fish are great choices. Why? Because they live in different neighborhoods, so to speak. They're out in the open water, not fighting the tang for its precious rock space. But you need to use extreme caution with highly territorial wrasses or fish known for chronic harassment. A stressed tang becomes a sick tang very quickly, and constant bullying is a one-way ticket to a rapid health crash.
You absolutely cannot rely on trial and error here. Smart planning means researching adult sizes way before you buy and going in with a very clear compatibility strategy, which usually means adding your most aggressive fish last. A super common mistake is dropping a new fish into a tank where territories are already formed, completely underestimating just how aggressive a tank can get in a confined space. And don't be fooled by their behavior during acclimation either. A tank might seem totally chill at first, but that aggression can violently escalate once they settle into routines, especially right around feeding time.
So, with all these rigorous pillars in mind, the massive swimming space, the fiercely stable water, the continuous specialized diets, and the incredibly delicate territory management, ask yourself this one final question. Is your reef truly ready for a tang? Or are you just ready for the idea of one? Take a hard, honest look at your setup against the facts we've covered today. Because I promise you, when it's done right, with proper planning, a healthy, cruising tang is hands down one of the most rewarding sights in the entire aquarium hobby. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.